Next up is Rocco Bressi and Darren Kindracuk from Lend-Lease Design in Sydney. They're going to be talking about sustainable Groundscrapers and Megaplate towers. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending our seminar today. Essentially, Darren will present most of the presentation today because we don't have a lot of time. But in terms of backup, Darren and I both work for Lend-Lease Design in the Sydney office. Darren is the principal architect, I'm the structural engineering manager. We work together in a multidisciplinary team containing architecture, structure, services and sustainability units in our business. We work with our parent company Lend-Lease and our project management construction company Bressi Lease to deliver integrated real estate solutions for our clients. Lend-Lease Design is a pivotal business working right at the front end of projects with clients, particularly to try to extract out the best value in terms of sustainability and value. With that introduction, I'll let Darren proceed with the rest of the presentation. Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Rocco. Now we're relying on a little bit of technology here, so let's see if it works. Over the last 2.5 days, we've seen a great series of presentations which describe fantastic facade concepts and introduce some truly iconic tower designs. Today I'll be speaking about planning and design of commercial office buildings from a slightly alternative point of view, from the inside moving out. If you like, focusing upon the workplace environment, followed by the vessel which contains it. In some ways, this presentation is a snapshot or a midterm report card illustrating the current trends in Australian office design. The projects and analysis you will see in this presentation are the result of the architectural, structural, and mechanical abilities of Lend-Lease Design. Of course, one cannot be but impressed by the sheer scale and intensity of development here in Dubai. No matter where you turn or which project is being discussed, the best or the largest appears to be a common reference point. So, in this spirit, I start with our presentation with the largest building in Australia currently under construction. This building will house the ANZ Banking Corporation and is designed by Lend-Lease Design and Hassel and in collaboration. Let's see if the technology works. No. It was supposed to rotate. Nevertheless, this is illustrating a ground scraper that is roughly 200 meters long, which could represent a tower. And in fact, this particular project, which is under construction, is actually in this format as a ground scraper. Importantly, in Australia, we actually make a lot of effort looking at the functional aspects of a commercial building, the floor plate efficiencies, the core efficiencies, checking tenant test fits. We also have a climate which allows us to do a little bit more with the architecture, relate the exterior and the interior of the building in a more direct way. We also have rating systems which allow us to benchmark and set a standard within the market for sustainability. We also are very active in the production of innovative workspace environments and workplace environments that allow for a work-life balance. Together, these factors allow us a unique opportunity in the way we design commercial office buildings. Another trend that's occurring is that there is a distinct effort with the multinationals and major corporates to look at tenancies that are presently in a number of buildings and consolidate into a larger facility for efficiency and for connectivity within their workforce. This has occurred with a number of banking institutions. Former slide was Commonwealth Bank, as well as I mentioned, the ANZ Bank. Here you can see ANZ currently occupy 3 buildings. They will move into a single building in the order of 90,000 square meters in one building. A trend we are seeing now in Australia, and it may have a lot to do with the environment and land opportunities, is an evolution from point towers or center core towers to side cores to large format ground scrapers. You can see this slide is actually to scale. So the building on the right is equivalent to virtually 5 office buildings of a mid-rise size in Australia. Also, we are looking at a number of buildings that are strung together or linked to create a ground scraper. It's important to realize here this is a city block long in reference to a city block in the city of Canberra. As well, another example, again, a linkage with atriums that provide for visual linkage between the buildings. And again, the ANZ as a prime example and the largest example currently in Australia. You can see the length of the building here in the order of 185 meters. Megaplate towers is another concept that has evolved, where we have large format floor plates that allow for connectivity, connection, efficiencies, as well as connections and special spaces within the building that normally are a result of a form or the resultant of a form. Again, as I mentioned, we also look very carefully at the efficiencies of these buildings, making sure that the tenancy fit-outs are effective and efficient. Just in a brief summary, ground scrapers are in the order of about 4,000 to 10,000 square meters per floor. Megaplate towers in the order of 2,000 to 4,000 square meters. The floor plate widths range between 12 to even 24 meters. And in terms of height, ground scrapers tend to be under 15 stories, and megaplate towers tend to be over 15. And the graphics you see on the bottom indicate a rough graphical comparison. Why is this happening? There are many opportunities for redevelopment of former port facilities or brownfield sites. In particular, in Melbourne, Australia, you can see here on the right-hand side, your left, the CBD and the Victoria Harbour Precinct, which is now currently under development by Lend-Lease. There's also examples in Sydney, where we have former abattoir and brickworks turned into the Olympic site and is now being redeveloped as a major city centre or sub-city centre. We have had success working in the city to offer developments that have potential for work-life balance, food and beverage, entertainment, office, as well as adjacent hotel. And the result of these opportunities lead to accessibility of that work-life balance. Importantly, in the media, there is a great trend towards supporting what is considered to be an important sustainability agenda nationally. We've recently had a change of government, and now we have a strong sustainability agenda which is being promoted in the media. The presentation I'll be making works from the creation of workplace environment through to sustainable form follows function. Importantly, as we look at this, we need to look at where the opportunities lie. They lie in specific building types within the office typology. These are basic, elaborated, and aspirational. Let's look at basic. Basic is a basic market response. The development itself answers simple market requirements and potentially addresses a basic sustainability agenda. Two examples shown here. If we look at elaborated, we have a greater opportunity here. Usually the development brief is more elaborate, it's a little more detailed, and tends to lead to some aspirations. Examples are Aurora Place, as well as the Commonwealth Bank building at Sydney Olympic Park. You can see here that the building form or the building interior have a bit more opportunity to express and be more innovative. Finally, we have aspirational. Aspirational buildings are a good example of our headquarters, the Bond in Sydney, and as I've shown at the beginning of this presentation, the ANZ Bank. Here, environmental as well as social and corporate culture issues enter into the equation and allow the building to become a rich tapestry for those influences to react to one another. Importantly, we also have the property guide from the Property Council of Australia for premium and grade A buildings. This sets a standard and sets a benchmark for the way we work and the benchmarks we work to. Importantly, workplace environment allows for a fantastic opportunity in the kind of buildings we design. For example, our headquarters, the Bond, we looked at a development brief which we actually learned from. We went through a number of engagement workshops and looked at the outputs. It led to a building attribute which was seriously green, looked for social distinction, had enabling technology, and a remarkable design. This really formed the foundation for a unique building. Other examples have been the Commonwealth Bank, another major institution in Australia, where they've identified workplace aspirations, and we assisted them with some benchmark examples. This led to a building typology of a groundscraper, but importantly, led to a unique spatial environment for the building, which is tailored to the corporate culture of the bank. It also informed the atrium design, the facade, and some of the interactive spaces, both internal and external. As you can see in this slide, one example here shows that the actual building facade was identified as a potential for an operable facade. We had the ability here to introduce mixed mode space and a terrace space within the building, which relates to the actual workplace environment. The ANZ also gave us a fantastic opportunity, identifying their aspirations, their values, and even a diagram for how they would like to see their new facility, their new home, how they would like to see it planned. We looked at that brief. We developed this scheme based on contextual issues, but we also identified opportunities for unique spaces within the building, which could be informed in the architecture that it began to represent. And critically, this is an example of double height spaces with a double skin facade that allowed for breakout spaces around the central core facilities. Importantly, we've identified the ability for the workplace environment to inform the architecture, whether it's mixed mode spaces, atrium spaces that allow for air handling opportunities, or whether it's just social spaces and double skin facades. We've also looked at this mindful of an international context, bearing in mind that culture, property market, technology, and development controls all have a major influence to how big or small the red dot in the middle could be, that representing the workplace environment or innovation of that workplace environment. So if you look at this on a number of cities, you see a number of shapes where innovation starts to realize itself in this graphic by a central dot, as well as the way the box deforms. And something that we keep in mind as we review other projects in other countries and see whether they're applicable to Australia. Importantly, creation of the workplace environment within the global context needs to consider four major factors from our point of view: sustainability, technology, the social aspect, and the generational change. I think there's been a few references to what will buildings be used for in the future. Can they be dismantled? We also look at what the generational shifts will be in our workplace environment. This is an interesting series of slides. It shows the workplace environment as a commodity in the 1960s, moving through to the 1980s, and then 2000 plus, our headquarters for Lend-Lease. What's next? We see an evolution here. It's very obvious to us that we're moving from environmental issues and cultural and community concerns through to triple bottom line and Generation Y and their aspirations. As we look at building design, we analyze the floor plate from the very beginning. So we start from the inside out, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. We start from the inside, looking at everything from zoning and planning, structure, orientation, and the way the floor plate could potentially plan out. We also look at environmental issues and how they'll affect the design, how certain elements can be captured, reinforced, or given more initiative. And this leads to how we actually handle the indoor environment. So rather than the building actually being designed as a shape, we're looking at how the indoor environment and the mechanical capabilities of the building can actually be perform at their best and deliver a sustainability agenda. We also look at the urban context, as well as many of the issues related to how spaces work within atriums and within the actual physical and social connections of the building. The ANZ is an example here. We went through a number of series of studies, how those concepts would actually work. I'm running out a little bit of time here, so I'll speed up. This particular slide just indicates the key principles for contemporary workplace environments, the drivers themselves. I might not read those. But we do see in the future that individual well-being, employee group needs, as well as attracting a quality workforce is very important for future planning principles. And this relates to whether it's a campus development integrated into the urban environment or within the building itself. As I mentioned before, in Australia we have the ability to connect to the exterior environment, and we look at that very seriously. So, future workspace. I might have to move through this slide quite quickly. We also identify within our own organization workshops, or the ability to generate an aspirational brief, how we might inform clients of opportunities which they may not have thought about. We call this a Genesis brief. And we actually look at how we detail that, whether it's a facade issue or a social issue. In terms of projects themselves, we see the Development of the project brief as fundamental to allowing for great opportunities in the building itself. As we will look at the priority, the workspace environment at the top, moving down to the context at the lower level. Obviously, floor plate design is most important, and then its influences from there, as well as the core design, structural systems, dynamics of the structural systems themselves, and how they all integrate together. We also are very mindful of the technology and the facade systems available and how we can incorporate that to create unique building types, as well as materials and the building technology itself. Orientation as well is a very important thing. We basically incorporate that in all of our projects today. In terms of looking at the interior and the exterior, as these models show, we not only can consider the exterior of the building, but we model the interior and the implications of that interior-exterior interface. A few examples. Sustainability, I know I'm moving rather fast now. However, for the ANZ, we looked at a number of issues. The ANZ has these 6 features within it, everything from river water cooling through to wind turbines and trigeneration. We've moved from 2004 to 2008, from 5-star, which was considered a very high rating in 2004, to now 6-star, which has quite a number of other initiatives within it. This is just an example between our 2 new headquarters from Sydney and Melbourne. So we're looking at physical, social, and sustainable, as well as financial, the triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit. Again, measured within the market and recognized as rating tools, ABGR, our Australian Green Star rating. And again, that rating is something that's recognized and graded within the market. We see ANZ promoting themselves as the best, as the highest rating in Australia, and proudly proclaiming and distributing to their employees and the media the way their building will perform. The same goes for our headquarters in Manlis in Victoria, and the ability for us to explain that to to other stakeholders and tenants. So we're really seeing here sustainable form follows function. And I think it's quite important to see that these are vessels in context, influenced by their context and their orientation. And I'll just flip through a few of these. There's probably not enough time to speak about them. This is just indicating that we take a lot of care to look at the floor plate, everything from circulation to shared functions to workstation densities. And we carefully consider core configuration, structural layout, and tenancy fit-out issues. All of these allow us to attain buildings of high efficiency. As these illustrations indicate, these buildings are in the order of 90% efficient net to gross on typical floors. This is a high target in the market, and is usually expected in large format buildings in Australia. We often see a lot of comparisons to fantastic objects, whether it's jewelry, perfume packaging. This also applies to architecture. We see many architectural forms dynamic, shape-making, and extraordinary in their context. But is this really the answer? Or is it more about the technology and representation of our time? Examples here, a camera, the mobile phone. If we look at the evolution of these products, they're about the function and the technology that influences them. We see this as a worthy consideration, workplace informing the architecture and the technology of the time being part of that workplace environment and how it works. So we see the ability for the indoor air handling systems to inform the architecture. We also see the spaces as more dynamic and designed from the inside out. Finally, we see that these are important concepts in moving forward with office design. Demonstrate a duty of care to the greater natural environment and be accountable to the creation of sustainable workplace environments. Address and creatively resolve commercial office building principles while embracing technological evolution and innovation. Incorporate and innovate with sustainable design initiatives to create positive environmental, social, and financial outcomes. Search for market opportunities to encourage tenant market-tuned project briefs, which embrace a robust sustainability agenda. And finally, form follows function, and form follows sustainable workplace environments. Thank you.